Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I am Miriam Al-Ghafir, the An-Nisa Youth Development Coordinator, and I'm here today with Sarah Ali. She has a master's in counseling psychology and has her own private practice and wellness center called This Transformation Studio in Stafford. She's also a creative entrepreneur and created Chemek Cosmetics and Chocolates. I'm so happy to have you here today, Sarah, to talk about how our youth can reset themselves for the summer and keep their mental health in a good place. I kind of want to start off by asking you, how can one get themselves out of a negative space? For a lot of youth, who are still in school, they maybe didn't have a good semester or the year didn't go the way that they had planned. Maybe they even failed a class or they have other issues in their life, whether that be with their job, family, etc. And, it didn't go the way they wanted it to go. So how do we deal with that negativity and past that?
Well, Alaikum Salam. It's a pleasure to join An-Nisa on this series, and thank you for having me. I think that's a great question, and I think one of the first concepts that I think is in a very powerful one comes from dialectical behavioral therapy, and it's the concept of radical acceptance. Radical acceptance means that you are radically accepting, you are coming to the reality of your situation. This is the direct opposite of often what we do. We are angry and we are in denial. Why did this happen to me? This is not fair. I can't believe this happened to me. I can't deal with it. I just can't. Okay. All of these thoughts and emotions, which I can understand, and we can understand that you're like in denial, right? But you have to come to terms with your situation. Once you come to terms with the situation, you're going to spend, instead of spinning your wheel about like the shock and just like lingering in the shock and the upsetness, you can spend that time and effort on proactive solutions and focusing on okay, I'm in this situation. What do I do about the situation? One, is it something that will just pass in a short amount of time? And then I just need to have patience and tolerance of the situation? Or two, is it something that I could possibly do for myself through my thoughts or my behavior that can bring me out of the situation? I'll use COVID as an example. Some people looked at COVID and experienced COVID, and they had severe anxiety, severe depression, irritability. They were really just completely crashing and shutting down, which is a very common reaction because it's such an unexpected situation. Other people looked at the situation and they adapted. They found the silver lining of the dark cloud. Certain people thrived in professional settings because they learned to adapt to a negative situation. Certain businesses thrived because they actually thought about like, okay, like what can I do to change, because the needs of the society is changing. So let me get into this. I know someone who they did 8 times better than they usually did because they got into branding of products that people would need, like face masks and the other stuff that they made, hand sanitizers, and they basically their side hustle, like they made so much money, right? And it's thinking in that way, like, okay, one is a bad situation. Yes, I'm upset. I'm going to give myself a chance to process my emotions. I'm going to be upset. I'm going to be sad. You have to do that because we're not ever going to promote, as a psychotherapist or as a person in general, I do not believe in the idea of not processing your emotions and not recognizing what your feelings are. You have to give yourself time to initially let that shock and the upsetness sink in, work through that emotion and feel it. And then after you give yourself an adequate amount of time to process that disappointment or that sadness or the grief or any of the feelings that you're feeling with whatever is going on, then you have to come to terms with what to do about it. The second thing I wanted to mention, regardless of what our stressors are, regardless what our disappointments are, let's say that you failed a class or you didn't get the GPA that you wanted, or there's some personal stuff going on in your life. When you step back and take a look at the bigger picture in your life, remember that for the average person, most people live till around 70. So this is one semester of 1 year of, inshallah, your 70-year life. So when you put that into perspective, is it that serious? Is it that important? Right. And then the next thing I want to say, as a professional who's been working for many years now, no one has ever asked for my GPA. Mm-hmm. No one has ever asked for, really, like, they assume they'll check your license. I'm in a licensed profession, so they check your license. But what they do is they want to see how you interact in your interview. And that is kind of something that I have to remind people and to remind my clients all the time. Hey, like, don't think that this, like, kind of like, oh, I ruined all my opportunities and ruled on my chances because I had a bad semester, or this happened in my life. It's a setback, but you can overcome that. And no one is going to be judging you for that one semester, especially if you're a good writer and you can write in your letters that, hey, this is what was going on in my life. That's why I didn't perform so well. You can spin a situation if you're a good writer. So those are the things that I wanted to mention, that it's a mindset change that can help you get through whatever is upsetting you.
Yeah, and you're so right about that. In high school, I personally struggled with my classes. And this came from a person who beforehand got all A's, never failed, always had a pretty easy life. And in high school, I struggled, and I'll even admit I failed a pre-cal class. And at the time, I was very depressed, and I thought, I'm never going to be successful. I'm never going to do anything in my life. No college is going to accept me, et cetera, et cetera. But alhamdulillah, like, in college, completely different shift. Academically, I've been on top of it. It's just like that mindset, like you talked about. And so to move forward, summer is right around the corner and people are transitioning into it. I know for some students, they've either been finished or they're soon going to be finished. How do they implement that positive mindset that you just talked about into their daily lives? Are there any techniques so that they can have that good mental health? And, how do they just reset themselves?
Sure. So before we jump into that answer, or what you mentioned was a perfect example of a cognitive distortion. And many of us, almost all of us, experience these negative thoughts in our mind that just are constantly happening. So I'm going to have you guys link on the video a little article about cognitive distortion that I always ask my clients to actually address in themselves. One, it's an awareness of a problem, right? And two, once you have an awareness of a problem, then you're able to make an impact by noticing that it's there and then being like, wait, hold on, I need to change the way I think. So that's just a caveat that I really feel like that's going to be helpful to everyone. Now, to answer your question. So first and most importantly, just like we pray, we have to set intention. Once you set intention, studies show that you are more likely to do something when you set intention. How does one set intention? We can set intention by putting it in our cell phone with a reminder. We can use a to-do list, and you can download the apps, or you can just make your own to-do list, writing it down. You can make like an idea board. There's like so many different ways, and cute ways as well, that you can create a set of like intentions and like, a to-do list or a bucket list, a goal for the month, a goal for the year maybe, or even just a goal for the day. You want to be able to start off with that kind of, okay, in the morning, it could be in the afternoon, it could be in the evening. You're like, okay, well, this is what I want to achieve today. This is what I want to do. And you are, inshallah, more likely to achieve that. And I promise me, I do this every single day. When I remember and I put myself into that mindset, I do achieve more. The next part would be, it is the idea of having a buddy system or accountability. So when you have a buddy system, you are not just holding yourself accountable with your little suggestions that I gave. You also have an outside of your brain. You have another person that you're like, hey, this is my cousin, this is my friend, this is my mom, whoever is now going to be checking in on me and asking me, hey, like you said you were going to do that. Are you going to do that? That's also very helpful, because accountability is going to step up your sense of guilt and shame, because you're like, oh crap, I didn't do nothing. So you really do push yourself to a certain additional oomph there, because someone else is going to be checking on you, right? And so that is something that is very helpful. Another one, which we all talk about exercise being really helpful for longevity of our body. We talk about exercise just in general for heart health, but I also want to note that exercise is also very powerful for our brain and our cognitive abilities. And I wanted to share a really interesting Harvard study that actually reiterates my point about the impact of exercise over 6 months of time. So what it says in the study is that when a person engages in a program of regular exercise of moderate intensity over 6 months or a year, this is associated with an increase in the volume of selected brain regions. Exercise boosts memory and thinking indirectly as well by improving mood and sleep and by reducing stress and anxiety. Specifically, the important part here is it specifically, studies continuously show that it specifically helps with motivation, concentration, and memory. So the more you exercise, the larger your brain is getting. Right. So exercise, like I was saying, exercise stimulates physiological changes, reduction in insulin resistance and inflammation, and improving growth factors, chemicals that affect the growth of new blood vessels in the brain. And basically, you're making some new brain cells, you're gonna have some tight abs. It's a good thing, right? So exercise, even just 10, 15 minutes a day, try to do this so you're able to actually have a stronger brain. So those are the 3 things that I think would be helpful for your reboot of your summer.
Sure. And let's say maybe someone is struggling mental health wise, and they're still at a point where they can handle this mental health issue, but they might realize that they're falling into a pattern. What are some strategies to deal with that?
So one of the things that I think is very important in all of our lives is taking 5 to 10 minutes out on a daily basis for reflection and introspection. This is something that allows us to address how our day went, how our interactions went with other people, how did we feel about those interactions, what were some successes and some fails in that day, why were there the failures? You ask yourself, I had an outburst today with XYZ person. Why did I do that? Why was I so irritable? Okay, like I noticed this is my emotion that day, and this is in that time, and this is my thought in that time. So when we actually take just a little bit of time out of the day, we build awareness of what is our baseline, and then what's going on today or this week. How did I know? Because I checked in with myself. I thought about it and I was like, oh, you know what? I've been sleeping a lot longer. I've been doing these behaviors, and these are changes and differences from how I usually act. Once you start to notice these patterns, you then need to research and understand, like, hey, these are actually some signs of depression, or these are some signs of anxiety. So as a person with Google, okay, we can actually first become aware of some of the more common mood disorders. So there's anxiety. Generalized anxiety is a very, very common, almost 1 out of 10 people have that. and then a depression. Now, in depression, there's so many different forms of depression, but generally, there's going to be symptoms that you become aware of. When you have that basic awareness, you can immediately get a ding, ding, ding in your mind, be like, oh, okay, I think I'm showing the signs of depression or anxiety or suicide. So it's that awareness. So one, you're checking in on yourself to see what's going on. Two, you know what to look out for. Three, you would reach out to people that you are comfortable with, your inner circle, people that you trust. You talk it out. One of the most powerful supports that we have is from just venting and expressing our emotion. It's very, very powerful. So we can share with people. When we do that, we alleviate some of our pain just from sharing and expressing. But sometimes, because we have people who do not know how to say much, because they're just like, oh, I'm sorry. Like they don't know what to say. Or they'll be like, hey, get over it, girl. Like my aunt has like 10 times more problems. Or like we just not the right responses, right? So why do people behave like this? Who knows? Like they don't have the same amount of empathy. They don't have the same amount of compassion. They're using humor at the wrong time. Some people just feel straight up awkward as heck when somebody shares stuff with them and they're like, stop it. I don't want that. They don't know what to do, right? Now, please don't take that personally. We have to address this as a side topic because we are in a society with the concept of toxic positivity, like smiling over everything, not discussing emotions. That's a big part. That's a big problem. The second problem is, as Muslims, we love to be like, oh, just do a dua, do this particular dua like 35 times, sitting at a 45-degree angle, and I'm like, I love you, Allah, I do, but let's focus on the actual issue. Mm-hmm. So prayer is very important, dua is very important, but it's not something that just kind of like fixes the problem. It helps us spiritually, but we need to actually fix the root of the problem. So the logical step there would be for you to seek out professionals. So where do you start? You start, if you are in a crisis situation, you will contact a hotline for 24/7 crisis support. That is your first go-to when you're really, really struggling. Another option is if you are a college student, you can go to your college campus, you can immediately contact your counseling department of your school. They're going to have usually the more serious your situation, the more quicker you're going to be able to get an initial screening. You're going to be able to hopefully get in an appointment. They're going to either be free if you're an active student, or they're going to have like reduced rates and stuff like that. The next options, of course, your nonprofits and your community clinics, just like An-Nisa, is a perfect example of a support system for you that's available. And they're usually non-denominational, regardless of what faith that nonprofit clinic is from. They're usually going to support people in the community. Then there's going to be clinics specifically for a particular, like there'll be an anxiety clinic or depression clinic or things like that. And also there's going to be county-based clinics too. So if you are in Brazoria County, if you're Fort Bend County, you can find sources just from looking up through your own area of your civic centers. And then of course, you have your insurance. So if you go through your insurance or your parents' insurance, generally you're going to be able to get recommendations or find the portal to find a therapist there. You can look through Psychology Today. You can also go to your mosque. Your mosque likely has a list of Muslim providers that can do therapy. So this brings me to the next kind of thing about therapy is now, of course, we're in 2022. Therapy is kind of coming to not just in person, but telehealth and phone therapy. You can seek a provider not just locally, but also throughout the state of Texas because our licensing is state-based. So those are some simple kind of go-tos in a situation where you feel overwhelmed.
Right. And I definitely recommend that everyone reach out if you are struggling. And like Sarah said, if you're on a college campus, for example, you can always go schedule an appointment. I know at UH, it's either, if you're in a crisis, it's free. And then like follow-up appointments, I think are like $5. So it's not inexpensive. And they tend to recommend, if they notice certain signs of things, a more, a more suited therapist for you. If they feel like they can't handle the situation, they let you know. So definitely reach out or go to a nonprofit and just, get that initial, I guess, check up if you feel that you are struggling, and it's more than you can handle. So kind of going off of what you talked about, a lot of people might feel that mental health is stigmatized, or, especially like you talk about Muslim community, we feel ashamed or we don't want to reach out because we feel like it's a sign of weakness or we're not strong enough, and people, I don't want to burden anyone, I'll bear it myself, and they essentially just suffer in silence. How do we destigmatize mental health, and how do we in Islam view mental health, and why is it important to us but also to our communities?
So first thing, I know you asked a lot of questions, so I'm going to try to answer all of them. So the first thing I want us to think about it. For religious guidance, we go to an alim, we go to a scholar, right? You are experiencing, some infection, you're going to go to a doctor. You're having a really bad tooth pain, you go to a dentist. Why, when you're having a mental health concern, you're having uncontrollable, very, very low mood, you're not able to get up, you're having crying spells, you are, having your whole body feels like pins and needles, you are going through an actual crisis situation, but, oh, girl, just get through it, you're going to be fine. What? I'm sorry, if my leg is falling off, someone is like, just pray about it. No, boo, my leg is falling off. Okay, I need to do something about it. So in reality, can we just look at the situation? Here's a problem. What is your active solution to the problem, right? So the reality is we have to accept that the mind is part of the body. And if we are having a mind problem, we go to a mind person, which is who? Psychiatrist. If you have a clinical situation happening where you are really needing to get some medication to get things out of the chemical whack, out of whack, you have a psychologist for when you want to do testing and measurement, when you do counseling, you have a counselor, which have different licenses for that. And I wanted to just explain this because a lot of times people get very confused, right? So there are different areas of counseling and different approaches to counseling. So when a person automatically thinks, oh my God, I'm not going to go to a therapist, like there's nothing wrong with me, I'm not crazy. Oh my God, if I hear that one more time. First of all, you do not have to be crazy to go to a therapist. What is the issue? Let's say a loved one passed away. Let's say you're just not able to concentrate and focus because of a worry that keeps popping in your mind. That is debilitating. That is creating it is creating a barrier in your everyday functioning. That is a big problem. You're going to a therapist because we are trained and we have clinical skills and techniques to help you change a thought pattern, a behavior pattern, an emotional, the root of a lot of our issues are emotional traumas. There's so much that's going on there that we need to take the layers out to find out the root of the problem. So what you may be doing at the very top of the problem, which is the iceberg, is you might be eating too much. You might be spending too much time outside so you don't focus inside. You might be becoming a workaholic. You might be doing all these like band-aids, but you're not getting to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is only going to be worked on through actually seeking help. Now, some people are talk-based. They love talking it out. Some people are self-help book based, so they like reading. You need to find the actual change in your mindset. And only when you actually address the mental health, the thinking, the thoughts, the emotions, the behavior patterns, are you actually going to change your problem. So as from the approach of changing the way we think about mental health is something that is important. So one, as I just mentioned, you don't have to have a I'm not crazy, you don't have to be crazy. Okay. People go to therapists, like I said, grief is a very big one. Anxiety is a very big one. Depression is a very big one. Where in our life do we not feel these emotions at points in our life? When, if your parent passes unexpectedly, or your child passes unexpectedly, how are you supposed to be okay?
Right.
How are you supposed to be okay when you unexpectedly found out that your spouse is having an affair? How are you supposed to be okay when you just lost your job that you spent your whole life working towards? These are major, shocking life transitions and emotional like punches in the face. You don't have to suffer by yourself. That's what therapy is there for. So I look at therapy in two ways. One, there's a clinical situation that's happening, we're trying to reduce the symptoms with different techniques. Or the other approach, or the other idea is like we're coaching you. So this is similar to someone who wants to get in a better position at work, so they get a mentor. This is a person who wants to like change their sense of style, so they go to an image consultant. So someone goes into a therapist or a coach and they ask them like, how can I be a better person? Right. So one is the approach to work on an actual like clinical problem, and one is just to improve you as a person. So a therapist can improve your communication, teach you conflict resolution skills. A therapist can help you address personality issues that are impacting your personal growth. They can help you actually fall in love with teaching you how to be more approachable. They can help you maintain love by using marriage and family counseling. They can keep your family together by helping you teach how to get along with each other better. When you find the right kind of therapist that matches your personality and your vibe, it can be a game changer, and they can change everything for the better. It is one of the most empowering feelings to have someone who gives you an hour of their time, 100% undivided attention, keeps your secrets till they die. Okay. It is something like I feel like every one of us should take the privilege of this service when it's available through your insurance. Also, because of COVID, lots of insurances are offering free therapy. EAP provides like 5 to 8 sessions based on the types of jobs that you do. So it's almost a disservice to yourself not to lean on mental health providers for the support that they can provide you. So I don't know if I answered all of the questions you asked me a bunch.
Yeah, I think we covered everything. And I guess one of the questions that we didn't cover on is that we talked a little bit about, but like we talked about the improvement of ourselves, but how does that impact our communities when we improve ourselves?
Sure. So when we are psychologically very at ease and we are in peace and tranquility mentally, we are better human beings. So we have a bounce in our step, we're happier because we're centered. And a centered person is a better person in every communication that they have. They're going to be nicer to people. And that's kind of like a domino effect. When you're centered and you're balanced, you are a happier person, and you're not going to have as many irritable interactions with community members. Safety wise, when you have been if your trauma or your pain or whatever issues that you're experiencing are being worked on with a person on a regular basis, you're not going to see these very dangerous and traumatic shooting that kind of in schools and in grocery stores. What is that? What is that? How detrimental to society are people who are untreated, with whatever pain they're experiencing, whatever psychosis, that's all mental health, right? And so as a society, I cannot stress this enough. Our mental health as a person 100% directly impacts the mental health of our community, because if we're not good, the people around us can be very much affected because that person is going to mistreat their friends, their family, their coworkers, people in the mosque, people in the overall community are going to be impacted, right? Because our behaviors are not going to be balanced either.
For sure. And you're totally right about that, and you made incredible points about, talking about how mental health relates to all aspects of our lives. And so kind of moving to the end of this discussion to wrap things up, I know you talked a lot about intentions and things like that at the beginning. And a lot of people might start off doing that in the summer, and then as they go through, they might fall off. How do we transfer everything that you talked about, all the techniques and goals? How do we continue that after summer where things might get more stressful, school, work, whatever, and people start letting go of these habits?
So it's kind of coming to the idea that I kind of discussed earlier, intention and purpose, which we talked about already, but also looking at the bigger picture of your life. Who do you want to be? Are you actively working on creating this version of yourself? And are you just going to be this version of yourself for 2 months? Or do you really like that, the change that you've seen in yourself in that time frame? Second part, being mindful, kind of going back to what I was talking about, that 10 minutes of introspection and reflection, being mindful, asking yourself like, okay, like how did I fall off today? Okay, you know what? I didn't eat healthy today. That's fine. Maybe I ate half of a pizza. Okay, right? So give yourself breaks, but go back to be like, what is my brand? Who am I as a person? What do I want to build this brand to be? And one of the important parts here is building a routine of habits, thoughts, and behaviors, and consistency with that. The next part, as we've already talked about, is that accountability. So if we've set our goals for the year or just overall, and we have a friend that knows this, they can catch us up on that. Be like, hey, you said that you wanted to get a promotion at your job. So like, girl, what are you doing about it? Okay, so like, how is that going? So again, still using that accountability, not just in the summertime, but throughout, right? A genuine, loyal friend who wants the best for us is going to want to see us succeed as a person. And then positive reinforcement. So positive reinforcement is going to be organic and natural because other people are going to notice that change in the summertime, and they're very likely going to comment on it. Okay, so that's from the outside. And then there's your own internal reinforcements that you can give to yourself. So these are rewards that you can give to yourself when you reach those goals in the summertime that you can continue obviously in the rest of the semester, the rest of the year, is that you do this that you said that you're going to do, and you give yourself a little reward that keeps you going and keeps you motivated. And then of course, the idea that kind of the bigger picture is when you basically are stepping back at the big picture of your life, you're wanting to understand that, okay, there's going to be some months my productivity may be going down. There may be some months where I'm going to be hyper focused on something else. So like, you know what? A lot of times Ramadan is we just like literally take Ramadan out of the calendar for a lot of the activities that we are usually doing, because we know Ramadan is like focused on community service, ibadat, all that, right? Okay, that's great. But step back and look at your big calendar and be like, all right, okay, I know those are going to be my crap months. I know, okay, I'm not going to get this. That's fine. But don't let those low performance months then drag on, right?
Yeah.
And that's the part I think is so important for us to be like, okay, you're allowed to have down days, you're allowed to have low performance days, even low performance weeks, but don't let that become your new baseline. Remind yourself, I'm human, I make mistakes, I can have low performances, but that's not me. I am actually this right here, and I can be that even if I had poor days. And I want us to have this non-perfectionist perspective. And I forgot to mention something that's very important. I believe that we should have a growth perspective. We are works in progress. We can and will constantly improve and become better if we keep putting that fuel into ourselves to grow and become that person. So this mindset that some people are like, oh, whatever, this is just me.
Yeah.
That's not just you. Like, oh my God, she's just like, that's just how she is. I'm sorry, you're mean and that's just how you are. Like you get to like, no, I'm sorry, those are excuses. We as people constantly should be able to improve ourselves, take criticism and feedback in a positive way because someone's giving you the gift of awareness of a character that maybe you didn't know that you had. Take it in, let that percolate, and then try to improve yourself. Try to put some of the things that we talked about today into effect, and you will start to see that excitement of those changes. And again, a habit forms in 30 days. So when you start to build these positive habits, they may just become automatic and you don't have to think twice about it. So the comment or question that people have, like, how am I able to maintain it? Because it feels good. It feels good, right? It feels good to be, like I said, centered and addressing your issues, whatever they are, because obviously everybody's going to have different issues and concerns. And you're getting the help that you need, you're working on yourself, you feel motivated and you feel focused, and inshallah, you're just going to continue going at that nice pace to reach whatever your goals are for yourself.
For sure, that makes a lot of sense. And when we create habits of good behavior to better ourselves, we can keep that on for a long time, for long term, not just, this is my personality for the summer, and then in the fall, I change my habits. So I want to thank you so much for coming here and talking to us about mental health and how we can reset for the summer, what techniques we can use, the resources that we have in the community that will be linked to this video. I just want to thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.